No. What are they doing? Winna whispered. It's just standing, I think. Sophia replied, her voice low. What do you mean, it? Winna asked, looking at the corner. She didn't move to check what Sophia had described. She asked, Did they see you? I don't know. It moved a little. Sophia ignored Winna's first question. It was hard to describe how the figure didn't feel human. She felt sweat trickling along her hairline, aware that her heart was racing, and her legs were screaming for her to run as far as she could in the opposite direction. Another creak. Closer this time. Sophia scrunched up her face and took a deep breath through her mouth, holding it in her lungs before letting it seep out. She moved slowly, gripping the screwdriver in her right hand until her fingers throbbed. She shifted closer to the corner and peeked around, mentally focusing on where the figure had been. But the grinning man was directly in front of her. End of chapter 12. Well, that's terrifying. For those playing PCG, there's a stand true in chat. Feel free to pokey catch. Oh, these poor girls. They're having a very bad time. Leaving Eve behind to go get the hammer and then coming back and having the room be like entirely as it was. To me, one of the scariest things so far. Of just that, like, but I know it was like this. I know that it was different just a second ago. And I think it's really effective how things are changing or people are experiencing things. That's really helping these girls to stay confused. Is this part of the study? Is this something else? What can they do? Something is very wrong and they cannot contact anyone else. I'm just checking page count here. So I believe we're going to get up to chapter 16 is where we're going to have a little pause. So we still have was it around 13, 14, 15, 16. 4 more chapters that we're going to get through tonight. And that'll bring us approximately 2/3 of the way through. And then, we're going to be finishing the book next week, which feels crazy to say, but we are going to do it. I love how, like, page-turnery the chapters are. They're very snappy and quick. All right, y'all. Without further ado, why don't we hop on into our next chapter of the night, chapter 13. Sophia opened her mouth to scream, but she had forgotten to breathe. So instead she choked and gasped for air. Her heart was racing as the outsides of her vision turned black and fuzzy. She dropped the screwdriver on the floor as she reached back and grabbed Winna's hand. She was already threatening to run when she finally had enough air in her lungs to streak. Winna offered no resistance as Sophia dragged her past the other bedrooms and raced to the stairs. Sophia let go of Winna as she started downstairs, swinging herself around the banister on the landing to go down to the second flight. She charged along the hallway straight to the back sunroom and frantically tried to open the door, shouting repeatedly, "Let us out!" Winna had caught up and was banging on the door. Sophia gave up trying to turn the doorknob and instead just pounded on the door. She ran out of energy and sank to the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks. Winna frowned and looked toward the hallway. "What happened?" she asked. "It was right there, grinning at me with its hollow eyes." Sophia tried her best to organize her thoughts, but ended up murmuring, "The smile was too big." The shutters were still locked firmly, but no light seeped through the cracks as it had a few hours prior. "Oh man, we've been running around for hours. It's like 10 already. We're here for another night, aren't we?" Winna's words were bleak, and Sophia shivered. The thought of facing that hallway and the grinning man made Sophia's stomach churn and mouth go dry. She admitted, "I can't go upstairs again." "The library's next door," Winna suggested. "There are 2 sofas. We can use the throw blankets tonight. I don't want to be by myself either." Both women pushed themselves up, and Sophia led the way to the library. She preferred to have Winna at her back. She paused a moment before working up the courage to set out into the hallway. There was no one waiting for them. They secured the door with a heavy armchair. With both the women pushing, the chair scraped along the floor, gouging a trail in the hardwood. But it felt better to have a heavy obstacle in front of the door. After checking the corners of the room, they pushed the sofas together into a makeshift fortified bed. Sophia pulled the tiny chain, turning the lamp on the side table. The glow was dim and orange beneath the stained glass dome, but it was better than the total blackness that enveloped the room. The shadows it gave off unnerved Sophia a little. She was worried that a shadow would move in her periphery. Beside Winna, Sophia huddled under her blanket. It was dusty and thin, offering little warmth. She stared at the ornate stone fireplace, considering if she should start a fire to warm the room to give them some light. The fireplace seemed far away in the dark, too exposed, out in the open. It was easier to huddle in the blanket, safe. Instead, it smelled stale, but it was better than nothing. She was wide awake, and every shift in the house caused her to check the door to be certain it was closed behind the chair. The thick darkness filled the corners of the room. Winna's breathing was uneven, and Sophia wondered if either of them would get any sleep. She wasn't sure how long it had been since they barricaded themselves in the library. It was going to be a long night, and she wished she still had the screwdriver. A dripping sound cut through the silence. She reasoned it was possible there was a leaky pipe in the bathroom down the hall, or something in the pool. She desperately tried to turn her mind from the fact that it didn't make sense they would be able to hear it from the library. The hollow dripping was the only consistent noise in the dimness. The silence between the drips became heavy. Sophia began to count the stifling seconds between drips. Slow footsteps dragged along the floor outside the room, coming to a stop on the other side of the door. "Winna," Sophia breathed. "Did you hear that?" Winna's response was barely a whisper. The The knob jostled from one side to the other, and Sophia was thankful the lock held. Drip. Silence. Then the scratching started, slow and deliberate, dragging the length of the door. Winna whimpered. Sophia racked her brain, trying to think if there was anything beyond books in the room she could use as a weapon. If she could take the person terrorizing them by surprise, then she could knock them out. They wouldn't expect her to open the door. She didn't want to open the door or even step foot out of bed, but it was up to her to be brave now that Eve was missing. "Where's the hammer?" she whispered to Winna. Sophia had it under her pillow and slid it to Winna had it under her pillow and she slid it to Sophia. Sophia's foot had almost reached the floor when another scraping reverberated down the door. Her ankle felt too exposed and she retracted it back under the blanket. "Oh God, Winna. I just picture the grinning man." Her voice broke as she tried to calm herself. She was scared a hammer wouldn't do anything against a shadow. The scratching stopped, but the feeling of a presence on the other side of the door remained. Drip. "I'm scared," Winna murmured. "Me too," Sophia agreed. Drip. The knob was jiggled again, and then stopped. "This is going to go on all night," Sophia gritted her teeth. Drip. Just when Sophia thought the silence would linger, there was a loud bang as the door shook. Both women jumped as the door shuddered on its hinges. Whoever was on the other side became so frustrated that they figured smashing the heavy wooden door could break it down. The thumping persisted until the whole door was rattling on the frame. "Leave us alone! Go away!" Winna shrieked over the noise. Immediately, the banging cut short, giving way to a heavy silence that covered the women as they sat huddled at the center of the sofas. The inky darkness from the shadows curled up in amorphic figures. The stillness crawled on. Sophia found even her breathing seemed too loud. Nothing was moving in the corridor. "Think they're still there?" Winna asked. "I don't know," Sophia replied, squinting in the direction of the door. "There's nothing we can do about it, though. I'm not going to open the door." "No!" Winna's whispered response was quick. "Whatever it is can't get in." "Yep. So we just wait the night out." Sophia hoped she sounded braver than she felt. She kept a tight grip on the hammer as she lay back down, keeping her eyes on the door. "It's so quiet," Winna murmured after a few minutes. "Mm-hmm." Sophia hummed in return, too drained to fully speak. "I just mean that there isn't a drip anymore," Winna added. It was strange, but Sophia didn't have the energy to process it. "Sophia?" Winna whispered after another moment. "Sophia, I'm worried there isn't a crazed serial killer coming for us." Sophia felt her stomach turn. She willed Winna not to speak aloud, which she had been thinking for a while. "Sophia, I think it's the house." Sophia mumbled a vague response to acknowledge that Winna had spoken. She lay hugging herself, her hands balled into fists. Exhaustion overtook her as the adrenaline tapered off from her system. She heard Winna's breathing become steady as the other woman fell asleep. She felt drowsy and her muscles relaxed. She knew it probably was best if one of them stayed awake, but every time she blinked, it became difficult to open her eyes. And then, somehow, she slept. End of chapter 13. Fatangle. 2 times 5 times 5, a golden month anniversary. Fatangle, thank you so much for 50 months. Resubscribing at tier 3. I really appreciate it. How are you doing, Fatangle? Welcome, welcome. Welcome back to Something Dead. It's not going very well for our girls. Sleepy? You feeling okay? Or has it just been a long day? I feel like a little bit sluggish, myself. Having the first work day back after a long weekend, you're never fully prepared. Recovering from the last week, totally fair. For those playing PCG, there's a grubbin in chat. Feel free to pokey catch. We have 3 more chapters that we're going to read tonight. Chapters 14, 15, and 16. And then next week we'll be finishing the book. We'll have quite a few chapters to get through, probably 9 or something on stream. I think it's 25 chapters. But again, about a third, page count, a third of the book. So I think some of the chapters are shorter in there. But yeah, very exciting. We're going to have the thrilling conclusion very soon. I've officially finished my tea. I'll have to switch to water. We'll probably jump on into our next chapter. Get settled in here. Cozy. Sophia slid back into consciousness, aware of her stiff neck and aching body. Winna breathed slowly beside her, still caught up in the peaceful oblivion of sleep. Fear rippled through her at the thought of opening her eyes. What if the grinning man was there? What if he'd gotten in and was waiting for her? Taking a breath and bracing herself for the dead eyes and unnatural smile, Sophia squinted into the room. Of course, nothing was there. She checked the corners, making sure there were no shadows lurking before allowing herself to sit up. The little bit of light that struggled through the cracks in the windows was immediately swallowed up by the heavy darkness in the room. Winna rolled over and yawned as Sophia was climbing over the arm of the sofa. So, whatever that was last night didn't get in, she remarked. When Sophia didn't respond, Winna added, I hope Harper got help and is on the way. We'll break out of here today. Sophia mumbled an acknowledgement and walked slowly around the room. She felt tired already, but movement felt good. The thought of another day in the house was disheartening. She didn't want to just leave Eve. The rational part of her knew it was stupid to hope Eve had found shelter somewhere, but to escape without trying to find her friend felt wrong. Neither of the duo felt compelled to put the room back into its original state. They both had nothing to pack up, so it didn't take them long to push aside a chair and stand anxiously in front of the door. Dread. Sophia was terrified of what would be waiting for them in the corridor. She took a couple breaths before setting her brow and reaching to unlock the door. She winced at the click of the lock. But nothing happened. Grasping the handle, she took another deep breath and pulled open the door. She was cautious, her body tense and ready to propel herself backwards. The corridor was empty. There was no movement, and at first glance, everything was in the same place it had been the night before. Sophia's gaze dropped to the dark spot on the floor. The carpet was soaked. Puddle had bloomed outwards from the absolutely saturated area just in front of the door. She crouched down and grimaced as she poked a finger at it. It came back wet, but clean. Just water. But the carpet was soaked and made a squelching sound as she drew her hand back. There were no pipes above them, but she spotted a wet path of splotches and drips leading to the puddle from down the hallway. "At least it isn't blood," Winna whispered, her voice cracking. She muttered a quick apology at Sophia's horrified expression. Sophia stood back up and rubbed her arms. Winna's comment drove home it wouldn't be completely unexpected to have had the spot be more gruesome than water, and that they needed to get out of there before it was blood lining the halls. Her stomach growled, a low, hollow rumble. "Okay," Sophia breathed as she looked both ways down the dim corridor. "I know that getting out is our priority, but I think we should check the kitchen to see what's in the cupboards that we could grab quickly. Maybe there'll be some knives?" Winna nodded. "Sure." They started down the hallway. "But we need to be fast. I want to be out of here as soon as possible. I don't want to waste time digging through cupboards and drawers." Sophia made an effort to avoid the wet splatters of footprints that led up to and away from the door to the indoor pool. She glanced through the water-spotted windows that ran the length of the pool room. Something was floating in the pool. A chill ran down her spine. Was it the grinning man? She stopped, her feet refusing to move as she squinted to get a clearer image of the dark form bobbing gently in the middle of the pool. It was a body. Oh God. It was Eve. The quest for knives immediately forgotten, Sophia turned a sharp 180, heading toward the door into the pool. Winna squeaked in surprise at Sophia's sudden burst of energy and scrambled after her. In seconds, she had slammed open the door and crossed the deck, plunging feet first into the water. Tears streamed down her face, becoming indistinguishable from the chlorine-laced pool water as she splashed up to the body. "Eve!" Her voice was hoarse. Sophia choked, having to spit out a mouthful of water. The body wasn't moving. Instead, it floated down in blissful ignorance of Sophia's panicked yelling as she drew near. She grabbed the body by the sweater, pulling it nearer to her. Struggling to keep its head above water, Sophia began tugging it toward the side of the pool. It seemed as though the body had no problem floating when it was on its own, but the minute she had a hold of it, Sophia continually pulled against the suction of the water that seemed to be trying to drag the body the opposite way she was going. She coughed up a lungful of water after she was submerged for the third time. She was exhausted, and she gasped in relief when her fingers brushed the edge of the deck. Winna was beside her in an instant, her fingers digging into her arms as she helped heave Sophia out of the water. Both women pulled the soaking wet body from the water, flipping it around on the deck. A shriek cut through Sophia's pounding ears, and Winna threw herself on the body. Sophia instinctually tried to push her off. She needed to give Eve CPR. Winna wouldn't budge, and Sophia's pushing became more urgent. She then tried to drag the wailing woman off, her nails digging into Winna's arms. "Winna," Sophia growled, "move. Maybe it isn't too late. You need to move. Let go." Sophia grabbed Winna around the waist and twisted to use her whole body to detach the woman. Winna was smaller than Sophia, but was surprisingly strong. Finally, Winna seemed to let go and allow herself to be dragged from the body. She was still sobbing and shaking. Sophia turned to the body, but already her heart was heavy. How could she have left Eve behind? And now she couldn't save her. Part of her didn't even want to look at Eve's lifeless, waterlogged body. Dead eyes and limp arms. She gulped and took a step toward the body. And then she stopped. Winna's renewed sobbed became a faint static noise in the background, and Sophia dropped down to her knees. When one hope rekindled inside of her, another hope was extinguished. The body she pulled from the pool wasn't Eve. Eve was still somewhere else. She could still be alive. Sophia crawled along the tiled deck until she was beside the body. She reached out and closed his eyes. "You were gone," she muttered to Harper's body. "We saw you leave. You were going to get us help." No, Winna whimpered. She was beside Sophia again, taking Harper's hand in hers. Sophia pushed herself away, backing up to give Winna some space. She pulled her knees to her chest and sat, huddled and shivering. She was soaking wet, and their best chance at rescue lay bloated on the tiles. End of chapter 14. Oh no. Oh no. Harper's not coming back for her help. He is drowned in the pool. The water ghost, says Latest. I liked the slow reveal there of the puddles in the carpet. And the girl's not necessarily connecting, maybe we should check the pool. That's where there's water. There was weird dripping all night. How did that happen? I won't get started on the next chapter quite yet, since we have about 30 seconds to go on our Stream Raiders battle. Last minute to drop units down if you'd like to. I see Fatangle, you threw down an epic. Thank you. The next battle after will be our last one. We have 2 chapters left. And I think we'll probably get through them in about half an hour. Oh, you snuck one in there, Weed Stalker. Congratulations. Good job.